I just watched this movie and I think it was pretty good. It was pretty decent. At my personal rating on 1 to 10, I would say that I'd give it about a 7 or 8. I think it deserves that. Now, this movie also had an early release at SXSW, which is South by Southwest. That's one of those film festivals that they do in Austin, Texas, and that's where they usually hold the early releases of movies. And that usually applies to movies of different genres. I mean, that could be comedy movies, it could be horror. I'm assuming some action movies. And it was released. It was released there on March 15th, and then it was released nationally April 21st. The movie budgeted $19 million, and they're already at $94 million. So, I mean, they're making a lot off of it, and they're pretty successful so far. It hasn't even been out a month, and they're doing pretty well. So here's, I'm going to try to do my best to, once I get to the reviews, I'll do my best to not get into the spoilers. It's still a new movie, so I'm not going to tell you too much, but here's the synopsis, and then I'll get into the reviews and the ratings. Moving the action out of the woods and into the city, Evil Dead Rise tells a twisted tale of two estranged sisters, Elle and Beth, played by Alyssa Sutherland and Lily Sullivan, whose reunion is cut short by the rise of flesh-possessing demons, thrusting them into a primal battle for survival as they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable. Now, those flesh-eating demons that they're referring to right there, those are what's called deadites. And that would be Deadites. A lot of people are asking, what's deadites? What is that? Deadites are a species of undead, parasitic, demonic spirits which feed on the souls of living creatures and possess their bodies. Deadites first appeared in the 1981 film, The Evil Dead. That was the original one, the first one, though they were not identified by name until Evil Dead 2, which was released in 1987. I watched that one, wasn't a huge fan of it. The first one, kind of all right. Then they had a remake in 2013, and of course, blah, blah, blah. I'll talk about that one in a different video. So that's what that's about so far. And the cast, we got Alyssa Sutherland playing Ellie, Lily Sullivan playing Beth, Morgan Davies as Danny, Gabrielle Echoes as Bridget, Nell Fisher as Cassie, and you have Bill Reynolds as Jake, Anne Marie Thomas as Jessica. So here are some of let's get to the reviews of it. Among Google users, I see 62 to 85%. Metacritic gave it a 69%. That's somewhat okay for them. Like I said, they along with Rotten Tomatoes are known for giving a lot of things low ratings, even if they're really good. Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 84%. That's kind of surprising for them. Internet Movie Database, 71. So, here are some of the reviews here. Now, this one right here says spoiler-free review. Glad to see that. Lee Cronin, the director, has crafted a mesmerizing and horrifying gorefest with Evil Dead Rise. This is one of my most anticipated films to release of 2023, and I'm glad I got a chance to see it on the big screen. From the title card that hits you from the jump, the structure of the story's narrative and name makes sense as a long-time sequel to the Evil Dead films. Evil Dead Rise, it has all the tropes and camp you'd expect from the Evil Dead universe. Alyssa Sutherland as Mommy plays one of my all-time favorite Deadites. She is petrifying and embracing every second in her role as a villain. This is her first major role. I think this performance will truly be a massive success for her as an actress. She's effectively changing her mannerisms to make it seem like she could be a franchise-defining antagonist that we've yet to see take the mantle. Lily Sullivan as the new final girl, Beth, is also very good here. She reminds me a lot of Mia from the 2013 reboot, but she certainly stands on her own too. That's some wonderful moments with the kids. You're rooting for her to escape and defeat Mommy. Okay. It's a bummer. Okay, now here's a 1 star. It's a bummer to watch the lowest point of a favorite horror film franchise unfold on the big screen, especially as a huge fan of the original movies. including the underrated 2013 reboot, making the high praise given by the so-called professional reviewers that much more perplexing. When it was announced that Rise would feature 2 sisters and 3 children of the one sister, I expected high-tension situations and emotional scenes as the family members hold witness to their loved ones being tormented by demon possession and horrendous body dismemberment. Too bad for me, I guess, because I did not feel as if the characters had any sort of relation to each other outside of being actors who had just literally met one another on set. We're told, this is our 8-year-old niece and her mother, your sister, is trying to murder her, okay? Now, act. Okay. So in case you've missed that, he basically was saying that he thinks that the people got together on set and basically like, hey, you play this, you play this is your sister, this is your niece. This person tries to kill that person, so get out there and just read the script. I'm trying not to say the names exactly of who was trying to kill. I know they kind of spoiled a little bit there, but I'm trying not to go beyond that. I think it was a little more than that. That sounds a little bit pessimistic, but I mean, hey, I'm not trashing that because every opinion is its own. I get it. It's just movies, people. It's just movies. So, in addition to the existing disconnect between the characters, there's absolutely nothing about Rise that feels as if it belongs to the franchise. And if you were to remove Evil Dead from the title, you would have just another basic demon possession movie. There are plenty of websites and professional critics who praise the movie as a success. It even holds a higher Rotten Tomatoes score than the 2013 reboot, but this level of absurdity tells me a couple of things. 1, Rotten Tomatoes can't be trusted, ever. 2, the gender of the characters, the gender fluidity of the younger characters, and the girl boss attitudes matter much more to the modern audience than the actual quality of the film. 3, people are as simple as an army of darkness skeleton soldier. Okay, so let me comment a little bit on that. So this person said, who praised the movie's success, it holds a higher Rotten Tomatoes score than the 2013 reboot. This level of absurdity tells me. So 1, Rotten Tomatoes can't be trusted. Okay, here's the thing about that. So I have a half and half opinion when it comes to that. And this might come from a biased perspective. But one thing that I've noticed with Rotten Tomatoes, and you can kind of say Metacritic, and they've done this with TV shows, movies, and video games. If you have a movie that is widely liked and widely popular, and you have most sources that would say give it scores of, let's say, between 80 and 90%, or you can even say 70 to 90%, Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic would give it like about a 60 to 65. And they've done that with shows, they've done it with, so I kind of see that, but then sometimes you trust Rotten Tomatoes if they give it a score that you feel is appropriate. So, hey, there's this movie that I love that I think it deserves a 90%. If Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 65%, I'll say, okay, they don't know what they're talking about. But if they also give it a 90, 95%, I say, okay, that sounds about right. So, I mean, the question comes down to is when people say that this source can't be trusted, is it simply because they gave it a rating or a score or a grade that they disagree with? Or, I mean, could it just be that? When I also look at I'll put it like this. Even if I didn't like the movie, I can say this. As I said earlier, the budget on the movie was $19 million. The box office right now is $94 million. So, objectively speaking, it is making money off of it. They didn't lose any money, so they are a success for them. Do I expect this to be a box office hit? No. Do I think that it'll reach 100 million? I think that's very likely. Is it going to reach 200 million or even 150 million? Probably not. Probably not. No. First of all, they're not going to reach 200 million. And even 150 is a bit of a stretch. I think they can make 100 million. It says the gender of the characters and the gender fluidity of the younger characters and girl boss attitudes matter much. You know, here's the thing about that. I did notice that there were a couple of the characters, so particularly the older brother, Danny, and the middle child, I think that was Bridget, she's the daughter. There was something about them that kind of hinted that, and I guess based on their physical appearance, it would appear that they weren't completely straight. Maybe they could have been bisexual or whatever. However, that wasn't something that was discussed in the movie. Okay, at least I don't even think they mentioned it in the movie. At least I didn't catch that unless they just made some small remark that went over my head. But nobody really was paying attention to that because there were much more important things going on in that movie. You had people getting killed and possessed left and right. I mean, there was bloodshed. I mean, there was those deadites that were taking over the house and were trying to kill every family member. And so I would think that that's what people were focused on a little bit more. It says right here, people are as simple as an army of darkness skeleton soldier. I don't have much to say about that one. I didn't watch Army of Darkness, to tell you the truth. I saw the trailer for it. It didn't look interesting to me. I don't know. So I guess I can't really argue against that criticism. So, the same person also says, referring back to my second point, I have no problem with an all-female cast. It was Mia, after all, who was the lone survivor of the 2013 film, but she held a certain distinction and badassery that only a recovering addict who has already been through hell can possess. The characters in Rise, on the other hand, feel as if they were cast just for the sake of casting a woman character because that is the current Hollywood blueprint, which also happens to portray males as bumbling buffoons who contribute nothing except getting in the way of all that on-screen girl power. See, that's where I have mixed thoughts too. Look, sometimes I feel, on one hand, you have certain movies and shows that are going to put either an all-male cast or an all-female cast. And then on the other hand, they might just cast some people regardless of the gender or regardless of... With this movie in particular, I don't know for sure that that's what they did. Now, they could have done that. I don't know if that was the intention, but who knows? I think this entire movie could have been done if you had, say, if you had two brothers, and let's say they had, one brother had, 3 sons or even 2 sons and a daughter. I think the whole thing, I don't think much would have changed. I don't see that. As far as let me break some of this down in which way I can. Feel as if they were cast just for the sake of casting because that's the current Hollywood blueprint. There's still plenty of Hollywood movies that are being released. I mean, you got The Avengers, you got many drama films and comedy movies. A lot of them still have a predominantly male cast. So I can't completely agree with that. But as a person who's a liberal, I can kind of somewhat see the point. I know most of Hollywood is liberal, so I mean, they do embrace the whole feminism thing, but I'll save that for a different one, which also happens to portray males as bumbling buffoons who contribute nothing except... I don't know about that one either, because even in some of these cliche horror films and these slasher movies, you have plenty of male and female characters that can be bumbling idiots, and then there's plenty of them who know what they're doing. They're smart. When you look at the Scream movies, when you look at, some of the main guy characters, when you look at somebody like Chad from Scream 5 and 6, okay, he had his moments, but ultimately, for the most part, he was smart. He fought back. He did what he could to protect his friends. He was willing to risk his life to save his girlfriend and all that stuff. Luckily, he survived. You also have the female characters like Sydney and Gail who essentially do the same thing. So, again, I guess that really just depends on who you ask, and it depends on what movie or show you're talking about. He also says, if all that female independence wasn't enough to bore you straight out of the theater, there are plenty of other mistakes that will. For example, the characters failing to question why their loved ones are suddenly being possessed or how they barely react to truly gruesome deaths. Scenes that were unintentionally hilarious, as evident by the dozen or so laughing moviegoers. The pointless lake scene, which was obvious time-filling consent. And the kills lacking the same visceral impact of the 2013 reboot, the latter of which is due to the simple fact that mutilating kids and women is distasteful. But here's a simple solution for that issue. Don't cast kids in a movie notorious for body horror. Okay, I didn't think of it like that. I mean, look, truly question why their loved ones are suddenly being possessed. In a way, they kind of did do that. I mean, it probably didn't go as deep as what this person wants to go, but they did go in there and say, hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? Like, what's happening? Is she going to be okay? What are we going to have to do? Those questions were being asked. Now, And by the way, this video is going on a little bit longer than I expected, but I didn't expect a comment like this, but I like to talk about this. It's fun. How they barely react to truly gruesome deaths. Well, you know what? Scenes that were unintentionally hilarious as ever. The scenes that were unintentionally hilarious, I don't think that had to do with the deaths. I think that had to do with, a particular scene I could think of where somebody was name calling the other, or just certain smart alecky remarks and just childish banter. Some of that kind of was funny and laughable. But as far as the scenes where people were getting killed and possessed, I didn't see anything laughable about that. And I don't remember anybody in the movie theater laughing about that. So, I don't know. I guess I don't know who was in that theater with you. If they laughed at it, then that's them. They laughed at it, whatever. I wasn't there. Let's see. The pointless lake scene, which was obvious time-filling content. I'm not going to say it was pointless because it did. The ending showed how it got to the beginning. The beginning took place for about, say, 10 minutes, and then the rest of the movie was what happened a day prior to that. So I'm not going to spoil exactly who it was or what it was, but just watch the movie for yourself. Check it out. Time-filling content, the latter of which is due to the simple fact that mutilating it. Here's a simple solution for that issue. Don't cast kids in a movie notorious for body horror. Let me see. I will say that one of the kids in the movie was, what was she, about 7 or 8 at most. Generally, I would say that I'm not necessarily a fan of the idea of them doing that. Because, you didn't have kids in, like, the other slasher movies that I always talk about in this show. When you talk Jason, when you talk Freddy, when you talk Halloween, when you talk, Scream and stuff like that, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they didn't have any kids in that. And they did have a kid in this one, and there was like one person who was preteen or a teenager. The oldest boy was obviously a teenager. He had to have been about 14 or 15, maybe close to 16. I can see that point, and I guess I can't totally disagree with that. And then this person finally said, I left the theater disappointed that my favorite horror movie franchise is finally on the downswing of its existence, but it happens to the best of them, does it not? It can happen to horror legends like Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Pinhead, and countless others. Then the Evil Dead franchise is not immune, and Rise marks the beginning of that end for this great franchise. And that's your 1 star right there, folks, and there we have it. You heard it here first, folks. Now, here are some of the other reviews that I'm going to read that are relatively shorter. One person gave it a 4 star and says, with the latest installment in the franchise from director Lee Cronin, Rise continues the trend of no misses for this series as we get yet another violent, bloody, gory, and downright gruesome time that takes the most serious and demented approach yet. Taking place in one beat-down apartment, we watch as a family is completely terrorized and attacked by the Deadites who infect such and such. I'm not going to say who they infected, but I'm not going to spoil that part because they did name a name here. I'm going to let you watch it and see for yourself. Okay, they're doing too many spoilers here. The creativity is on full display with the use of split. Again, spoilers, people. Okay, I'm going to have to skip that one. 5 stars said, I definitely have some good things to say about this horror flick. I'd like to say that The Evil Dead Rise is one of the best and by far one of the most scariest and yet the most terrifying films of all time. Another thing to mention, the movie also ups the ante on the gore, which might make it more gorier than Saw and even bloodier than Terrifier. Everything that's in the movie is considered to be outstandingly spot on and top-notch, such as the acting and the creepy yet haunted atmosphere, quality, and of course, let's not forget the cinematography and the special effects. Even has some of the techniques invented by original Evil Dead creator Sam Raimi. Raimi? We're going to go with that for now. And this time, it's almost paying homage to the original. So, there's a lot of other reviews that are right there. And like I said, it's Google users so far. The ratings are between 62 to 85%. But these are all opinions and there's all different perspectives. So you can just check it out yourself. It's available in theaters right now. If you haven't seen the trailer, I'll put the trailer to it in the comment section here. To those of you who are diehard horror film fanatics like myself, if you've already liked stuff like the Jasons, the Freddys, the Screams, the Halloweens, and the Chainsaws, if you liked all them, I'd suggest this one. If you saw the other Evil Dead movies, if you're not into horror films, and if you're not into really, if you can't stomach If you can't stomach intense violence, countless deaths, and insane amounts of blood and bloodshed, if you can't tolerate any of that, that's perfectly fine. I wouldn't recommend it to you. I don't want to do that to you. But to those of you that are horror film fans, check it out yourself. I think it's a pretty good movie. Check it out.